written instructions to help you successfully complete this kit. Dura-Craft Incorporated is an industry leader in the manufacture and sales of dollhouse kits because of our unique design features. We offer a selection of precision die cut as well as molded pine, tongue and groove clapboard siding houses. All of our dollhouses are fully framed with molded pine corner posts, and all the edges are trimmed with pine molding for easy assembly and to add strength and beauty. Additional enhancements in many of our houses include working windows and doors, hardwood floors, brick and stonework, split redwood shakes, gutters and downspouts, and fancy silkscreen windows. Dura-Craft's commitment to quality and customer satisfaction is most evident in our warranty. Dura-Craft will replace missing or damaged parts no matter whose fault the damage was, even if it was because of a customer error. We also offer unlimited online telephone assembly consultation to assure a completed house. If you require assembly help beyond the instructions and the video, feel free to call Dura-Craft customer service at 503-538-3136. Thank you for purchasing a Dura-Craft Incorporated dollhouse.
Hi, my name is Tony Velarde. Welcome to Dura-Craft San Franciscan dollhouse assembly video. I've designed Dura-Craft dollhouses since 1990, including writing the instructions. This video is designed to be used in conjunction with the written instructions. Sometimes you can't always conceptualize what an illustration is trying to point out, so we are going to demonstrate on real models. That way you can see what you're doing as well as read about it. There's no one way to assemble the kit. If you find a better way or something is easier for you, depending on your skill level, go ahead and do it that way. There are some points that I feel need to be done a certain way, and that's what the video is about. Try to point those out so that you won't make mistakes that you have to be redone. On page 2 of the instructions is a list of materials that are recommended for using in the assembly of this dollhouse kit. Not all of them are required. Many of them are just options that will help you. This is figure 1, the long frame assemblies illustration. It's on page 5. The purpose of this illustration is to demonstrate how the pine moldings are glued together. For instance, the back edge or the bevel of the 576 gets glued to the back edge of the 5.1. It is better to glue them wood to wood than to have the parts pre-painted and then try to glue them together. It will not bond as well. This illustration also names each of the assemblies. For instance, A, B, B, C, C, D, so that they can be referenced in figure 13 when you're assembling the walls. You will refer back to this when you are at the wall assembly stage. In figure 2, we're assembling the wall panels. This is a piece of pine molding. One side has ridges, the other side is flat. The bottom has a groove, top has a tongue. First thing to do is make sure the siding is the proper length. This is supposed to be a 14-inch piece. It is. Sometimes they can be up to 1/8 of an inch too long. If that's the case, trim it off to the proper length, or later down the road, when you're assembling the walls and the floors will not fit properly. In assembling the walls, use a framing square. If you don't have a framing square, use the corner of a table. Run a bead of glue in the groove or the tongue, whichever you prefer. Interlock the tongue and the groove and tape together. Let this dry for an hour or so until you can pick it up and it doesn't fall back apart. Once it is dry, take it to a warm room where the humidity can be taken out of the wood. If you'll notice, this wall is buckled. That's because it was left in a moist room. They need to be dried in a warm room with low moisture. That will shrink the boards to their minimum height. And then you can seal them with an oil-based sealer, and then they won't expand or contract, thus preventing cracking after they are installed into the corner posts. This is figure 3 on page 6. First step is to measure for your floor supports. You'll notice that the groove is the bottom of the wall. Measure up 9 5/8 for the first mark, which will support the second floor, and 19 3/8 for the mark that will support the third floor. Sometimes the walls are not tall enough to get that 19 3/8 mark. If that's the case, then measure down to 19 1/8 and line up the bottom of the 546 on your mark as opposed to the top. Next, run a bead of glue along your 546 and glue the top edge of it to your mark. Be sure to leave a 1/4 inch on each end so that when you put the wall in the groove of the corner post, it will be able to be inserted. For the purposes of this video, I have not painted any of the parts or wallpapered them, but I prefer to do that before assembly. It's much easier to paint, especially when you're doing several colors, and wallpapering is much easier to do when the boards are flat as opposed to trying to cut an exact size and fit them and glue them onto a wall squarely. It's also much easier to wallpaper the house before it's assembled than to have to cut each wallpaper piece to the exact dimensions and then try to fit it into an assembled house. When planning your wallpapering and your painting, you need to accommodate the depth of the groove onto the walls. You don't want to paint all the way to the edge. You'll notice this is how deep the walls go into the groove, approximately 3/16 of an inch. That is what you want to leave as bare wood on both sides so that you have a wood-to-wood gluing contact. Plus, wallpaper and paint add width to the walls, and they will probably crack your molding. Since we're planning on wallpapering before we assemble, we need to determine where the wallpaper junctions will go. For instance, this is one room, this is another room. We determine on page 7, figure 4, where that is by measuring 5 inches from the straight edge, 1 3/4 inches from the left edge, and drawing a line there and doing one color wallpaper to this line and the other to there. I prefer to use a glue stick when applying the wallpaper. Just spread the glue on the wall, add your wallpaper to your line, smooth it out, and then just cut around the edge of the wall. And you lift this off. Don't forget to leave your 3/16. Let's assemble the base floor. This is a die board. The good side is the side that is most clearly punched, and it has the identification numbers on it. It's also the smoothest. The back side, you can tell, is much rougher. To get a piece out of the die board, I've noticed that there are some notches that are left in the dies to hold the pieces in the board so they don't all fall apart during shipping. So I'm going to go through with my knife and just hit those notches, cut them through so that I don't splinter or tear part of my die board when I'm punching it out. To assemble the base floor, match up the edges of the base floor front and the base floor back with the good side up. Tape along the splice edge. Turn it over. Apply a bead of glue. Glue it to along the splice so that it is centered between both edges, approximately 1/4 inch. Tape this into position and let it dry. Let's put the base walls onto the base floor. The base floor is upside down. The good side down, you'll notice, because the splice is up. I've already assembled several of the base walls and put their corresponding supports. They're all the same. It doesn't matter which ones go where. Add a base wall. Put a piece of tape underneath the notch. Add glue to the base wall, interlock it, run the tape up the side, add glue to the base wall support, add it at a 90-degree angle so it's straight up and down, and tape over. Let it dry. It's time to install the base floor supports. You'll notice this long one has a notch. Interlock the two pieces. The notch goes over the base floor support. Center, run a bead of glue along the bottom edges and along the ends, and center the piece over the two holes. Later on, corner posts D, E, and EF will protrude through the floor and anchor the base to the walls. I've painted the base wall the color that I want my mortar lines to be. Next, I'll peel off the stencil, the brick tape stencil. You notice that it leaves the centers behind. Sometimes you'll get one that stays in there, just peel it off. And then you apply it, probably flush with the bottom, because the top edge will get a piece of trim, and you won't notice if it doesn't go all the way. Make sure that it's on securely. I've mixed water and glue into this brick powder mix. You can see the consistency is. It's about like cake frosting or so. And just spread it on. About a 1/16 of an inch thick. You might want to cover your antique tabletop. Once you get it onto the right thickness and you've got it spread the way you like it, then just peel off the stencil and you've got brick. If it's too wet, it will run. You usually let it dry maybe 2 or 3 minutes if it is too wet, and it won't be so smeary and you'll be able to touch it up. Let's add hardwood flooring to the base floor. I've already applied some, and if you'll notice, the joints are offset. There's not two in a row. The method is you apply it to the base floor, apply it to your piece of wood, your flooring, and then let them dry. I prefer to use this. This is a neoprene-based contact cement, which means it has low or no odor. Let them dry. After they're dry, you apply the hardwood flooring and burnish, they call it. You press it down well. These are not dry, obviously. Once they're dry, it will stick and it won't curl up. Go ahead and sand the flooring smooth. Remove all of the contact cement. Once you're done with that, remove the dust. To protect the brickwork, run a piece of tape along the edge of a piece of paper. This will keep the varnish from dripping over onto the bricks and ruining what you've spent so much time doing. I like to use a varnish that is low odor, water cleanup, dries quickly. Apply a coat onto your floor evenly. Thin coats are better. Many thin coats are better than one thick coat. After you've got 2 coats on, if you want a pegged appearance for your flooring, take a nail that's been flattened on the end or a nail set and hit 2 holes on the end of each board, both sides of the crack of the joint line. I'm going to assemble the second and third floors just the same as the base floor, the splice and a 1/4 inch gap on each end. This is the third floor. I've added 5/100 to the edges of this floor. After the third floor is dry, we need to add 5/100 to the edges so that the roof has a surface to glue to. I'm going to run a bead of glue along the shortest edge and glue it flush with the edge of the floor. Tape that into position. Sometimes this glue likes to slide, so be careful that you've got it in the right spot after you get the tape tight. On the back edges, we need to leave a 1/4 inch gap from the edge to the end of the 5/100 so that the corner post can protrude up through there. We are going to glue 5/100 just like we did on the third floor. The front edge is flush. The back edge has about 1/8 of an inch gap between the edge of the floor and the 5/100. Now you see why, so that this can fit into the groove of the S5 too. Run a bead of glue in there, tape it in place. Next we need to cut the S5-2 at the same angle as the 5/100. Lay your blade along that angle and cut through it. That way the roof will come down and glue onto this surface and this surface. Same thing with this side. I like to add the carpeting before I put the floor in the house. This is the second floor. Put glue, I like to use a glue stick. Make sure you get a nice coat, especially on the edges. I'll just show you a sampling. Put your fabric, I use fabric. This is kind of a velveteen type of a deal. Smooth it on, get the wrinkles out. Turn it over. And use either a knife or you can cut it with scissors and just trim off right along the edge there. In figure 13, there's an illustration at the top of the figure that illustrates where the locations of the long frame assemblies that were named in figure 1 are located. For instance, this is assembly A/B, B/C, C/D, and on around. At this point, most all of the walls are assembled onto the base. We have one left to do, that's H1. Run a bead of glue in the grooves. And slide the wall down with the tongue on the top. If that hadn't have slidden down so easily, I would have sanded the edges to a taper on the ridged side, not more than 3/16 of an inch in. That way it's much thinner and it'll slide down the grooves. Make sure that the walls are fully seated into the grooves of the posts. If they're not, then the walls will be pushed out farther and your floors will not meet and touch the walls. To assure that the windows will all end up at the same height and the window sills, measure the walls, make sure that they are the same height. This one is at just over 1 5/8. This one is at 1 5/8. To cure that, take a knife and just peel whatever's necessary until you get the desired height. Then we can tape our windowsills in, glue, put a bead of glue here, tape them in place. Try to get these level. Let them dry. Drawing frame assemblies DE and EF protrude clear through the floor. The grooves are situated so that the 7-inch piece that was free before, that wasn't glued, now fits into those grooves. Glue that in place, and that will anchor the main part of the house to the base. We're going to assemble a window assembly. There's a difference between a slider and a frame. Slider is wider than a frame by a 1/4 of an inch, which is 1/8 of an inch on each side. The center cutout is the same. To assemble a window, put a frame, or a slider, slider side down, good side down, and a bead of glue. There's a side of the glass that has been silk screened. You can see it if you shine the light off of it. That's the whitest side. Let's put that up. I like to take a pencil, just press it down all along the edge so you have good glue contact to the plastic. Run another bead of glue, but you want to keep the glue away from the edge where the slider will slide up and down in the window trim. So I leave 1/8 of an inch free of glue on both sides. Center the frame on and make sure your glass is centered. This is the 5/156. It is the slider trim for the windows. This is a top window. It's glued with the frame to the outside, slider to the inside. It's at the top. This is the bottom frame with the slider to the on the outside of the house, frame on the inside of the house. Insert them in the groove like that. Tape it together. And this is how it will sit when it's installed into your house. You'll just pick it up and put it in the hole. It's time to assemble the last window assembly on the first floor. And then a bead of glue on the back, the inside of each of these pine moldings. Fit it in, slide it down. Next, slide wall H2 into the grooves. And we're going to turn the house around and measure from the inside. It's time to mark for floor supports, so we bring it in, measure 9 5/8 so that we can continue the same line for the second floor to sit on. Next, we're going to pull out the wall and glue the 5/46 to the mark. Next, we glue the 5/46 to H2, and we make sure that we have the 1/4 inch on each side. Now that you've got the floor support on, you can finish wallpapering the inside of this wall. This side was the bottom of the wall. This side is the top. So you're probably going to have different wallpaper. Make sure you don't go more than 3/16 close to the edge, and you can wrap your wallpaper up along the floor support, but just not on this top part, because that's where the second floor is going to glue to. And then you can run your second piece here. You don't have to get the wallpaper right on top of it because you will have a piece of baseboard. Installing the second floor starts with running a bead of glue along the top edge of the floor supports all the way around and sliding the second floor in place. A little bit tricky to get all the notches over. Use plenty of tape to hold the walls tight. Run a piece of tape across the whole back, side to side, to keep it up tight against the floor. You notice that the bottom of the opening for the balcony door is too high with respect to where the floor sits. We have a pivot plate that needs to sit on the floor. That means that we need to trim this wall down to the level of the second floor. It also needs to be trimmed because the balcony will sit at that same level. The utility knife works fine. You might want someone to help you hold the house. Just a few seconds of work, and you're done. Now it's time to install the balcony floor. Just set it right in there. Want have a bead of glue on your balcony floor supports, and tape it in place. Now it's time to make sure that all of the tops of the walls are the same height, so that when you again put the windows in, they'll all be level. I've installed 5 of the 6 second floor window assemblies. Here goes the 6th. Just slide it in, slide it down. Of course, you've glued. Add the last piece of wall. Now this is the proper height. This, from top of these posts to the top of the second floor, should be 9 5/8. The third floor is going to sit right on here and overhang. So we need to measure up, draw our lines, or somehow make sure that we trim to the level. If you can eyeball it, fine. So the walls are, the tops of the walls are flush with the tops of the corner posts. Also on this wall. And there's a piece of trim that goes right here and covers up the junction. So a little bit of roughing out is okay. I've already installed most of them, but you can add the last piece of 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch molding flush with the top of that. This gives an extra surface for the third floor to glue to. All right, it's time to install the third floor. Like I said, it sits on top of these posts and walls, but it sits inside the wall on top of the floor supports of this wall and the wall across, and in the bay. So set it on there. Of course, we've run a bead of glue around. Nice and tight. And you place some weights on it. Let that dry. Trim the tops of the walls so they're level. Install your 3 windows. And we'll continue on. This is the door assembly that's been glued together. There's going to be a hole drilled or nailed in for the pivot plate, about 1/8 of an inch in. To make the door operate smoothly, it's best to have this whole edge rounded over. So on some sandpaper, a few strokes on each side, should round it over pretty decently. Take your time. That gives it a fairly decent edge. This is the door assembly. There's been a lot of glue added in to the corners so that when the nail is driven for the pivot plate, it won't split. But as an extra precaution, I'm going to put a C-clamp on there. Made a little nail holding device, a piece of scrap wood, a saw mark through it, and that'll hold the nail while you're trying to hammer it in. The nail is going to end up 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. So I'm going to put the nail in now, right between the 2 boards. Then I'm going to pull it back out. The pivot plates have both been marked. The nail goes in the center of that. Drive in. Do the same thing on the other side. This is a room partition. Before installing, trim the edges of the room partition. This is the first and second floor room partitions have a 45-degree bevel right here where it will go into the meet into the inside of the front wall, because the tops of the doors are there with the same type of molding, and that will make them meet. The third floor room partition is square there because it just butts right into the wall by the oval window. These are the roof pieces, roof A, B, C, D, and E. They've been pre-scored. There's a little score mark you'll see. I don't know if you can see it now, but you can surely feel it. Just draw your lines from mark to mark, and those will be your shake lines. There's an inch here and 7/8 up all the way. The next step is to trim the top edge of the wall to the same angle as the 5/100. This will give you an example of what I'm talking about. You take your saw, you trim off the top of the wall, and you go clear through the post. I've assembled walls J, K, and L as in figure 25. Now I'm about to dry fit. They aren't glued together at all. They're just taped on the inside. I'm going to just tape them in place so that we can put the roof on next and then draw our lines for the cutting of this wall to the right shape. Essentially, we're going to have a diagonal line just like this, which will be the same slope as the roof. This is the whole roof assembly. A, B, C, D, and E. Large gable, small gable, and fourth floor. When installing the fourth floor, make sure that your distance from here to the bottom and here to the bottom is the same as the other side. That'll make sure that it's level when it's installed into the house. The tops of the roofs interlock. The gables interlock into the roof. From figure 26, you see that you've already added this piece of S576. Time to glue the roof assembly on. Run a bead of glue along the 5/100 and over here. And the small gable will rest right on the edge of this. If you've got carpet there, then either cut back 1/8 of an inch or just peel it up. You're going to put a baseboard on the inside anyway. Also, the large gable will glue to the top of this surface. No glue here. This is going to be lifted back out after the roof is installed. You got tabs on the bottom of the roof, gables. Just insert it in there. Tape it in place. And make sure you're level. You can either measure from the edge of the roof to the floor, 2 places, or on the inside, measure from the edge of the top 5/100 to the bottom of the floor, all 4 places. And tape that into position. Now, you can see where the inside of the roof comes in contact with the inside of the tower. So I'm going to take my pencil and trace the inside You don't have to do that inside notch if you want to, or if you don't want to. Now we've got marks on the posts and the walls. We'll untape it. Lift out the whole unit. You can see where my line is. Now you can either use a large saw and cut right straight down where you know the plane of the roof is, or take each piece individually and cut with your jigsaw or coping saw. After that's done, reassemble the whole back tower assembly, the J, K, and L walls, and glue them back into place. Now it's time to shake the roof. First step, I run 2 beads of glue along the bottom row and apply my shakes. First one I do right there next to the edge, flush. I put the top of the shake flush with the line that was drawn earlier. And then the second row, I run a dribble a little bit right on the top of the row that I just did, and then another bead just under my shake line. Since we don't want the shakes to be split at the same places, so because when it rains, that's not the way you do it. We split the first shake. And that way, your shake lines, these are the shake lines, they're offset, 1/2 shake. And if you find that you've caught up to yourself, sometimes the different widths will make it so that the shake lines will line up, then just, break off part of a shake and continue on. Same process all the way up. For the tower roof, we need to draw the shake lines. First is 1 inch. That's because the shakes are 1 1/8 of an inch long, so 1 1/8 of an inch overhang. Then 7/8, 7/8, all the way up. And do it again on this side. Then draw your lines between them. Continue that on all 6 tower roof pieces. When you get up close to the top, it's so narrow, it's fairly difficult to measure it and make a difference. So just do 1 mark in the middle and eyeball it. When the shake lines are drawn, just line up the front and the back, take them all together. Add another piece. Run up the front and back again. And insert the plate, the tower roof template. It's a stop sign shape, and you'll end up with something like this. Set the taped tower roofs into a coffee can and insert with a bead of glue around the edge. Insert the template. Run a bead of glue to make sure that it's going to stay in place. Measure down all around to make sure it's the right distance. This template, when it's inverted, will sit on top of the tower corner posts. So this needs to be level so that your tower roof is level. To install the 5/141, measure down from the top of the tower corner posts 2 1/4 inches. Add glue to the back of the 5/141 and line up the bottom edge of that molding to the marks. Tape in place. To assemble the staircase, use the corner of a drawer to help make sure everything is square. I've assembled most of the staircase. First I'm going to do the risers because the treads butt up against the risers. Just drop in there, and you'll notice the risers are flush on both sides with the walls, the sides of the staircase. Assembly. And we'll throw some glue on the tops of the risers and the staircase supports. Just drop the tread on. This one edge is flush. Everything is flush. On this edge, the tread overhangs the riser an eighth of an inch. Time to install the second floor staircase. You notice that the one side was flush. That is the side that glues against the room partition. I've run a bead of glue along it. I'll install it right here using the edge of the opening of the third floor, 1/8 inch setback as the top tread. Set it there and glue it in place. Tape it in position. This is the staircase banister. We've trimmed it with the handrail. Now we will put dobs of glue on the bottom of each one, and with one on the top, glue it in place. Put a bead of glue right there, or a drop, to glue it to the inside of the opening. When installing the porch rail, there's going to be a piece of 570 along the bottom of both edges. We've recommended 3 1/4 inches. Each house is just a little bit different, so you can measure for yourself if you want to be perfect, and the distance between the edge of this banister post to your tower corner post. And remember, there's a 30-degree angle on it. With the good side down, measure 11/16 from the center clear to the edge, and then place dowels. You don't need this one. Place dowels all along on the marks, and those will be on the back side, so that when you put the porch rail up, you'll just see the part that shows through. To install the barge ward plates, I've measured up 20 1/4 inches from the bottom of the foundation, run a bead of glue along the back of my barge ward plate, lined up the top of the plate with my marks. Then I've put glue on the back of the gussets, put one on the post. You'd measure out and determine where this is. One in the center, and then split the difference. Same on this side. To install the gutters, run a bead of glue along the top edge and install it right up against the roof bottom and the underside of the shakes. For an end cap, take a piece of hardwood flooring and glue it to the end. And when it dries, trim it around it with a utility knife, and you've got a clean end cap. Well, I hope you had a lot of fun. I'm sure your friends will be impressed. I'm sure you're proud of what you've accomplished. I'll see you in the next video.